Hello, everyone. Welcome to the dark side. I'm JVL here with my colleague at the Bulwark, AB Stoddard. AB, you were team Taylor last night, team vaccination, team deep state. Are you happy?
I'm so happy. I did not have any idea who was going to win the Super Bowl, but my husband informed me that people who've won 2 Super Bowls recently usually know what they're doing, and so when they get into a pinch, they can prevail. And this is apparently what happened. And I woke up this morning, and in all the darkness, I just decided that I was really pumped about how grumpy and freaked out the right was about this game, and the fact that they had to side with Nancy and Paul Pelosi and Kamala Harris.
Yes, and Gavin Newsom. Gavin Newsom.
To
Tough
root
spot
for the
for MAGA.
49ers. So I decided that since I don't have any Chiefs gear, that I would just come up with something that said Chiefs. So I'm going with Travis's number.
I love it. I love it. It's great. So, AB, you remember how last week ended, right? We got her report, and Joe Biden was elderly and confused, and then he held this impromptu press conference where he was like pretty good for 90 minutes, but there was one 3-second slip up, and so the New York Times ran five stories on the NewYorkTimes.com about how old Joe Biden was, and then Donald Trump had a rally over the weekend, and let me just read to you. I don't have the audio of it. One of the presidents of a big country stood up and said, "Well, sir," note he did not say that this leader of the big country had tears in his eyes. "Sir, if we don't pay and we're attacked by Russia, will you protect us?" I said, "You didn't pay? You're delinquent." He said, "Yes, let's say that happened." "No, I would not protect you. In fact, I would encourage them to do whatever the hell they want. You gotta pay. You gotta pay your bills." Okay. First off, the irony of a guy who's gone bankrupt. What? How many times has he declared bankruptcy? Whose entire business operating procedure, and this is just a matter of historical record, is to stiff people and not pay his bills and think that he can just renegotiate every contract after the fact. As our friend Tom Nichols said, his view, the Trump view of NATO, is that it's like a protection racket that the United States runs. And it's not a treaty. It's a protection racket. And if the countries in Europe don't want something to happen, something bad to happen to their businesses, they pay us for protection.
Yeah.
AB.
It has.
The New York Times did not have 5 stories about this.
This alliance has nothing to do with our own national security interests. Okay? So the idea of preventing another world war in Europe with invasions of other European countries after Vladimir Putin has taken Ukraine has nothing to do with this. This is simply another lesson for everyone to learn from Donald Trump, who, by the way, doesn't have to pay his bills. Everyone else has to tell the truth and pay their bills. He doesn't have to stay married. He doesn't have to peacefully transfer power. Everyone else has to do that stuff, okay? So if you guys think that there is anything for America to gain from an alliance like this that has brought peace and prosperity for lo these many decades, which is holding the world together, you guys are wrong, because it's America first. Everyone else are suckers and losers. We get the money, and it has nothing to do with actually helping us preserve our own self-interests as well. And no one came to him and told him that thing. Obviously, it was another moment on the week of this interview with Tucker and Putin, on the week of the Republican Party being on the verge of selling out Ukraine to Russia, of him inserting a pro-Russia anecdote into an appearance at a rally where he can take their side. That's what it was. It was completely intentional. He wasn't drunk. He wasn't rambling. There was no story to relay. It was another signal to Putin that he can have his way, and that the party is increasingly, with each passing day, embracing just an open door for that.
I mean, forget that it betrays, for a guy who was actually president, a complete of lack of understanding of how the treaty works, right? So the treaty organizations do not send remittances to the United States. There are target goals for the percentage of their own GDP that they're supposed to spend on their own defense. This is not, they're not sending money to the United States. It's that, they, by 0.3%, they didn't spend enough money on tanks or something like that. That's at every level, this is insane, but it's also not confusion, because he's been anti-NATO since he was in office. He has made noises about withdrawing from NATO. And he was serious enough about it, and Republicans in Congress are serious enough about it, that they went and worked with the Biden administration to pass a law to prohibit a nameless future president from unilaterally withdrawing from NATO. That's how seriously Republicans in Congress take it. AB, there's no political price to be paid for this.
No.
There's no what the fuck is going on?
No.
That there's no political price to be paid for this.
Senator Marco Rubio was the one who pushed that provision through into law only a few months ago in the defense authorization legislation, to make sure that 2/3 of the Congress would have to agree with the president if he was going to do anything to kneecap NATO. He can't withdraw from it, whatever. So this is the person who just told us yesterday that he has zero concern about what Trump said on Saturday night. It's
Zero.
just TDS from JVL and AB. Remember, it is complete delusional overreaction on our part to believe that this is at all dangerous, scaring the shit out of our allies at a time when Russians have invaded a country. And
right
are
next door.
set to take on, we're at anniversary of year 3 on February 24th, and he's set to take more. The Ukrainians are on their backs. And the idea that this would not meet with pushback, like you said, no political price. They don't even tepidly. It's so great that Rand Paul said, that was a stupid thing to say. Rand Paul said that because he doesn't want Trump to be that explicit.
Yeah.
In his Putin giveaways. This is astonishing to me, that not only is there no political price to pay with his party, with swing voters, but there's not even any salvageable remains of the old guard of the Republican Party who would be willing to come out on Sunday morning and say, actually, this isn't really the thing that we say when we're trying to rally to the defense of Ukraine so that, Putin doesn't go into Poland. So the fact that they're so scared to even come out and say anything about that, there is no confusion. Trump knows how NATO works. That's why I was saying this is all intentional. It's like, He knows exactly how NATO works. He speaks to people who are not informed and gets them riled up on this premise that we're being ripped off and that we're stupid and that we can't afford anything more at home because we're running around in proxy wars. And that is the fact that it's not checked by the members of his party who know that that's a lie and a pro-Russian talking point is just, it's just so sad.
I'm going to take the other side of that, AB. It's not a lie. He's dead right. People are stupid, and they are getting ripped off. And the stupid people getting ripped off are his voters.
Yeah.
They're the ones sending him $5, $25, $200 at a time to pay Helena Baba or whatever his dumb lawyer / fundraiser's name was, right?
Uh-huh.
These are the people who have no understanding of what the score is. Yeah. And I just write them off. They are what they are. But there are, a whole bunch of supposedly independent or D-leaning voters or R-leaning voters who Biden should be carrying like 95-5. And after something like this, Biden should be carrying 97-3. And even if we got this in front of every single one of those people, I don't think it would move like more than a dozen votes. What is I feel like I'm Mogatu from Zoolander. I feel like I'm taking crazy pills, and I don't get it. I don't understand it. I don't understand
I
how the New York Times can do 5 stories on Biden not remembering whatever, and then like 3 stories on this after 36 hours.
It was. I don't have the quote handy, and I wish that I had the forethought to do that. But it was the New York Times' description of how vigorous Trump is with his makeup and his
Oh,
hair dye, and how he puts on some dance moves, and so it really makes him look more youthful than Biden. I mean, there. I mean, we know you've established a record of how the New York Times has gone into the tank from this both siderism into Trump, pro-Trump, but that was really astonishing that they came up with that description and all the stories about Biden's age. And I don't think that they're going to change their perspective before November. So
here is another again. Look, we're preaching to the choir, but I'm going to just keep banging the bell anyway. Here's another thing from the weekend from Real Donald Trump on Truth Social. I don't know what we call these things. I'm just going to call it a tweet, even though it's not a tweet. I'm just going to read this to you. 2024 is our final battle. With you at my side, we will demolish the deep state. We will expel the warmongers from our government. We will drive out the globalists. We will cast out the communists, Marxists, and fascists. We will throw off the sick political class that hates our country. We will rout the fake news media. We will drain the swamp. And we will liberate our country from these tyrants and villains once and for all. These are the rantings of a crazy person. And he's leading in the polls. I don't get it. It's like I don't even understand what country we live in anymore.
yeah,
What?
I feel the same way. I mean, last week was, to me, just summed it up so much. Like the Republicans would come out and openly admit they killed border restrictions they've been desperately screaming we needed in a crisis for Donald Trump, and not pay a price for that they refused to govern. The display that they had on the House floor when they couldn't pass aid to Israel that they said was so important that they did as a standalone bill, and it was so important to stop an invasion by impeaching Mayorkas that they failed to succeed at doing. So they can't govern, they won't govern. And we had, as we discussed last week, the Vance Stefanik trying to tell the public that Congress has a role in deciding elections. The idea that Robert Hur, the special counsel, would give some official thing to Donald Trump's campaign to use against Joe Biden. I mean, day after day was, to me, one of the most just traumatizing, difficult 5, 6, 7 days together. But nothing moves the needle.
No.
And I am
But
very
things move the
concerned
needle in
that
the
it's
opposite
Biden's
direction.
age that I think that the electorate, has written off Joe Biden, and that they've come around to this idea, and we see this in polling, that the Donald Trump administration just wasn't as bad as they remember it as. There's no recollection of January 6th. There's no conceptualization, no integration of what a president who tried to steal an election would be once he was rewarded for trying to steal an election with a second term. So this is not integrated by the voters. And the tweet bleat that you just read that people have compared to Hitler it's Donald Trump's thing. It's totally apocalyptic. It's completely punitive. Everybody is scum except the people who believe in him and his cult. They will be savaged and eradicated. What? How? Like, every Democrat member of the media, every piece of vermin, all the globalists, everyone.
What's the final battle, AB?
Right.
It's the final one. It's the Gutter Demerong, right?
And this is not at all considered dangerous to Tom Tillis, the senator from North Carolina, who's trying to be rational, or the voters in these polls that we see picking him in general election lineups. It's just beyond me.
But here's what I don't get. It's I don't believe any of this is about Biden. And I hear what you're saying about voters have written off Biden, and maybe that's true. But we have a lot of indicators on how the needle gets moved, and it can be moved by all sorts of specious stuff on the other side, right? The president of Harvard goes before Congress and gives a bad answer to a gotcha question, and then it turns out that she plagiarized once upon a time, and, well, that's how you get Trump! Right? This is the, it really strikes at the heart of the elite globalist, blah, 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 blah. Anything that happens anywhere in America, there's some school board somewhere stuffed full of progressives who in their super liberal community want to just, have drag queen story hours all the live long day. And, well, that's how you get Trump. So it's this weird thing where Trump is, I guess why I feel like I'm living in an Alice in Wonderland kind of place where logic has no meaning. Trump's stuff is all manifestly insane. And because that's all there is insanity, then none of it matters.
Right.
But because Biden is like a normal politician, right? This is the Frank Frankfurter's book about him. It's called The Last Politician, I think. Because he is like one of these guys who just believes in politicking and horse trading and compromising and doing deals and all that. But then he does a gaffe here or a gaffe there, or somebody else does something somewhere else in America which people don't like. Well, then that stuff registers. And I just don't get it. And I blame so many people, none of whom's name is Joseph Robinette Biden. I blame people like Mike Gallagher. So that was the other news from this weekend. Mike Gallagher, once upon a time, the great hope, the great rhino hope from Wisconsin. He was young, he was good looking, he did military service, he was hawkish. I mean, he was what the Republican Party was going to be. And last week, he voted against the impeachment of Mayorkas, one of 3 Republicans, right, in the House who did that. And then over the weekend, he said, I'm out. And part of this is because Gallagher's a hawk. And he had, I guess, talked himself into believing that he could do more good by working within the system than not. And now he realizes, no, he can't. What are your thoughts on this?
So we did talk about this on the debut Bulwark podcast hosted by Tim Miller. And Bill Kristol makes the point that Gallagher was never there when we needed him to be.
No.
And I completely respect that point. I lament the departure of Gallagher as I lament the death of the Republican Party. That's all it is for me. That this was a guy a couple of hours ago who would have been the ideal leader for, or senator, governor, or president in a Republican Party that we knew until so recently. A true, everything you'd want in a public servant, a combat veteran, someone on the Armed Services Committee, the Intelligence Committee, and chairing the China Committee, trying to increase our competition with China and leverage. And he's working every day along his
and a
ranking
good guy
member,
and a smart
Democratic.
guy. Like I hung out with him a few times. Like
Yeah.
Gallagher's,
He's
he was a good
everything by the
hang.
book.
He's a smart guy.
Right.
And there was nothing at the time to indicate that he wasn't serious. This is the thing I struggle with, right? I mean, I knew Gallagher a little bit, and I also bought into the, oh boy, this is the future of the Republican Party. That's pretty cool. That's nice stuff there. There was nothing about him that made me think, oh, and by the way, if authoritarianism rears its head inside the Republican Party, he's totally going to go along with it. And yet,
Okay, so this is the point I made, and again, it's not to defend him. It's another lament. JVL, what have they all told themselves? Or what have they been told by their mentors and minders, their political consultants? You are the good guy. We cannot lose you. You have to stay here. You have to work within the system. Otherwise, you're going to be replaced by an orangutan. from MAGA. We desperately need you. You just have to lay low, stay quiet, don't rock the boat, don't be in the crosshairs. And so that's what he did, because he was the future of what? Now, I don't know when he decided to cut and run, but he obviously realized at some point, and I don't think it was after the Mayorkas vote last week, that this was a system he could no longer work within. He would never actually survive a primary unless he did so much more soul selling than he already has. And so it's super sad and gross, but it's nothing new when we think about the theory of how everyone's comforted themselves since January of 2017, which was, you got to get in there and be the grown up. And it's without us heroes, oh, good Lord, what would happen? And so they puff themselves up thinking they're doing good and they're going to protect us or democracy or liberalism from the attack. But they're not the bulwark. They're not the last line of defense, and they're cowards. So it's like, I'm not excusing him or defending him, but I see exactly through what took Mike Gallagher from a January 6th video screaming about the attack on the Capitol while he's in his office, saying the president's the only person that could stop this. This is banana republic shit, to Mike Gallagher then not voting to impeach days later.
So here's what I don't get. So in a weird way, I understand I have to be the grown up in the room and I have to work within the system. I don't agree with it. Yeah. And I think it's analytically a mistake, but I understand it. And I think it's at least an argument, right? I mean, I can see both sides of that. Once you make the decision that you being the grown up in the room is no longer helping anything, and so you leave, the only responsible thing to do is to temporarily try to help the other side. Yeah. And this dovetails with the final thing I want to talk about, which is over the weekend, Christie saying that while he'll never support Donald Trump, he can't possibly support Joe Biden either.
Yep.
I look at that, I'm like, well, why not, Chris?
You know what
is it? Was it the student loan executive order? You looked at that and you just thought, boy, it's no better than January 6th. You know, you looked at Joe Biden, the way that Joe Biden has run the National Highway Transportation Safety Board has been proto-authoritarian. It is no difference. It is tantamount to threatening to leave NATO. Same. They're just the same. And I don't understand how anybody who is like this much intellectually serious can be in that position on, what is this? The year of our Lord, 2024, February 12th.
I was disappointed, and you can laugh at me, but I think he's going to get there. The words were, I cannot imagine voting for Joe Biden. And okay, I believe that Christie is going to imagine it a few months from now. And he'll have a whole bunch of new reasons. He'll say, well, back in the winter, we were still hoping Nikki would prevail, and we were in the battle for Ukraine funding and so. He'll find details about this moment. I'm giving him this out, and I think he can take it. This is me like trying to just comfort myself, but I think it's rational and Christie has done greasier things than this. So he gets there and he says, on February 10th, when I said that, blah, blah, blah. But now that we've seen Trump say this, and we've learned this, and this from the court cases or the whatever, I think he comes around. It's still possible.
That's possible. And if so, then I'll take it all back. I'll take it all back. And I will just cop to taking him at the word he was trying to convey and not the lawyerly construct that he was actually using.
We have to prepare to be disappointed always, though.
Well, if you're prepared to be disappointed, then you never can be.
Right. That's the darkness that we live by.
AB, thanks for hanging out with me. We'll do it again next week. Good luck, America.